guys, Tech Guy here, and today we have thigh support issues with the E60 M5. Come and check it out. So if we take a look at the passenger seat here, we go to operate the switch there for the thigh support section of the seat. Nothing's happening. How are my passengers supposed to achieve thigh support to the fullest if this thing isn't working? And if we compare it to the other side, the driver's side, which is working, you can see this side's doing its job properly. So that's how it should work. So what's actually going on here? What happens when this thing fails? Well, there's an electric motor positioned underneath the seat there, and that drives the thigh support section of the seat backwards and forwards. Now this electric motor has a small plastic gear on it, and what happens over the years, over time, is that this plastic gear becomes hard and it becomes brittle, and normally it breaks, normally in two halves. And then of course, once the plastic gear is broken, it won't drive the seat thigh support section backwards and forwards anymore. Now this is a very common problem, not just on the M5s, but on the E60s with the sports seats also. Okay, so when this does fail, which is going to happen at some point if you do own one of these cars, what are you going to do about it? Well, there are a couple of options to get the seat thigh support section working again. Now BMW do sell a complete replacement motor, obviously with that new plastic gear already fitted. So if you just fancy removing the old one and replacing it with a brand new motor, fully assembled, then that's going to rectify the issue. There is also a cheaper option available. We can remove the motor, we can disassemble it, we can remove that broken plastic gear and replace it with a brass one. Now this is going to work out a lot cheaper than buying a complete new motor, but the reason BMW used that plastic gear in the first place is to have a nice, quiet, smooth operation of the thigh support section. So if you do go with the brass gear option, it's going to work out a lot cheaper, but of course you might experience a little bit more noise and it might not be as super smooth as a plastic gear, but that's just the sacrifice you'll have to make. But with the brass one, it's going to last a lot longer, so it's going to be cheaper and it's going to last over the long term. Now I've gone for the brass gear option just for the longevity of the fix that that's going to provide me. So this is what it looks like. You can find these on Amazon or eBay. They're straight out of Chinatown. You'll see these everywhere and they're super cheap. Then we're going to disassemble it, we're going to remove that broken plastic gear, and then we're going to replace it with this nice new brass gear that's going to last a lot longer than the original plastic one. Then we'll get everything reassembled, refitted to the seat, and we'll get our thigh support working again. Let's get into it. Alright, so to start off with, BMW recommend that you actually remove the whole seat from the vehicle to be able to gain access to that thigh support motor under there, but that's not necessary. We're going to gain access to it with the seat in the vehicle today, but we are going to get it into a position to start off with to be able to gain access to it, give ourselves a little bit more room. So we'll just get that seat base up in the air, and we'll push it right back. We'll get a bit of a tilt on too. Now that's going to give us a bit of extra room to play with under there. So we have two plastic panels here that we need to remove to give ourselves a bit more access. So this one just pulls up and out from the bottom. Now this one is clipped in, some clips holding it right about there behind the panel there. And then this end just hooks in. So we're going to start by removing the end closest to the center console first, and then we're going to unhook this end. So we're going to grab it at the end, put our fingers behind there, pull, there we go, and carefully unhook the other end, not to break anything. There we go. If we take a look at the back side, you can see where that metal clip fits in that opening there, and then at the other end you can see where it hooks in, and then we've got these two bolts here holding the thigh support pad itself, so we need to remove them and then lift that up and out the way. First we're going to extend the thigh support out. You might just have to get your fingers behind it and give it a bit of persuasion. And these take a T30 Torx. Just carefully lift that and fold it backwards out of the way there. And now we've got the seat pad out of the way, we've got 10 bolts to remove here. These take a T20 Torx. So there's 2 there, there's 1 in the middle there, there's 3 there, and then there's 2 either end just hiding underneath the lever there. A bit tricky to get to. So we're going to remove these 10 bolts now, and then we're going to lower the motor assembly down. Right, so I've got 9 of the bolts out now. I've just left that one in the middle there. So before we go any further, I'm just going to disconnect the electrical connector under here. I'm just going to lay a rag down here because these runners are quite greasy and I don't want to get grease all over my carpets. Now we can remove the last screw, and then you'll see these little plastic tangs here just holding the motor assembly in place. So once the last screw is removed, you might find you just need to push them tabs inward slightly just to be able to lower the motor assembly from the underside of the seat. Now we'll remove that last screw. Manoeuvre that out from under the seat there. There we go. That's the assembly out. Alright, so now we've got the adjustment unit removed from the car, we can take a look at replacing that gear which lives inside here. So to start off with, we need to remove the motor from this assembly. So there's 3 bolts holding that, which take a T10 Torx. And then the motor just slides out. And then to remove the plastic cowls in here to gain access to the gears, we need to remove these 3 bolts. They take a T20 Torx. And now we can remove the housing, but first we need to just pull back these wee tabs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this can be a wee bit tricky because you've got to get them all opened up to be able to pop that up out of the way, so it does take a little bit of massaging. There we go, that can be a little bit frustrating. We got there in the end. So if we take a look at this one, the old gear, looks like the plastic piece is broken in half. Just like they do, you can see it's split there. Now you can get repair plastic gears to press back on there, but to be honest with you, it's likely that it's only going to break later on again, so we're going to go for our brass option today. Put that aside. Right, so here's our new brass gear ready to install. So first up, we need to pull these little black plastic bushes off the old gear and install them onto the new one. There we go. And obviously this being a new gear, it's dry and we need to give it a bit of lubrication. So what I'm going to do now is give this a spray with some white lithium grease, and then we can position it back in the housing there. Put the lithium grease on there. There we go. And we can reassemble the cover. Back in with the 3 screws. Back in with the motor, and you want the plug connector on the motor facing the top there. We'll re-secure that with our 3 Torx screws. And now we can refit this back to the underside of the seat. But one thing to keep in mind when you are moving this around, this end here can rotate freely, so just watch that you don't end up spinning it round a full 360 degrees, because what will happen is you'll lose the alignment. So it's not hard just to keep it all the same and level, but just be mindful of that when you're moving it around. Don't let that spin right round 360 degrees, or you are going to find when it's back on the car it's going to be all misaligned. We've got that back in position. We can install the 10 Torx bolts at the top. Now we can reconnect our electrical connector to the motor there. Get rid of our greasy rag. That's the 10 Torx bolts back in position now, all secure. Then fold down the thigh support pad back in position. Then we'll refit the 2 Torx screws underneath. Now we can put our plastic covers back on. All right, so that's everything back together now. So now we can give it the big test. There we go, that's better. We can now achieve full thigh support for our passengers. Right, so that's that little job sorted. Now, if you found the video interesting or useful, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure you go and check out the rest of my YouTube channel for more BMW E60 M5 DIY content. Consider subscribing if that's your cup of tea. I'm MTech Guy. Thanks a lot for watching.